Okay, welcome to rant number 3, the rise of AI. Now this is a most disturbing topic. I've been meaning to launch this little podcast as my reaction as a layman to what I have experienced with AI. I'd heard about it. I thought, well, okay, let's see what it can do. Now, this area of online interaction is all new to me. Now, let me briefly explain my experience and where I've come from. As part of Power Director, which helps me produce these videos that I've been doing recently, there is an application called Photo Director. Now, Photo Director allows a couple of AI-powered components as part of its program to help you present and enhance what it is you're trying to do. Coming from a still image, AI goes off and does its thing. And now, okay, cool. I've been using Power Director for some 14 years, since 2010, I think it was, or thereabouts, and I'm quite happy with it. Okay, so I bought the upgraded version for 2025, where we are now, and along came all these other components for the same, as part of the package. One of the new applications was text to video. Didn't quite interest me, but I thought, oh, okay, that's interesting. The other was photos to video, and I thought, okay, let's see what that can do. That piqued my interest. So just to set the scene, my brother had passed away in January of 25, earlier on this year, and I thought, okay, I'll do a memorial video as a presentation, and get together all the old images that we had. Dad had a lot of stuff on Standard 8, Super 8. No, Standard 8 back then in the 50s when he was a kid. And I thought, well, okay, I'll work out something on how to present that as a memorial video. Bringing in, his passing and, his funeral and everything else that happened at the time. Okay, but this is part of the building block of getting together the presentation. So I'll show you a scene now where I picked up just an image that happened. Now this is an image from 1952. Stephen's in a pram. My brother Stephen, he's in a pram. It's just a black and white still. Okay, nothing else. I tell AI, or this application attached to Power Director, or Power Photo rather, okay, just put some life to him. I think I was very vague at the time. I didn't sort of say much at all. Okay, this is what it presented. Then that's cool, I thought, it's I guess I just didn't think that this is what AI could do, but okay, it turned it into like as if somebody had a video camera at the time and took a video image. It's only about 5 seconds, fair enough. In fact, you can buy 5 or 10 seconds worth, or you can purchase a professional version. Not that I wanted to go that far. I just wanted to put something together that was kind of quick but simple, but held the storyline and said what I wanted to say. Then working through more images of the 50s, I gave it more and more photos to add life to, so to speak, and the return videos were starting to get eerily uncomfortable. When I say that, I'm saying, especially when I saw my mum In 1953, at my brother's first birthday, and mind you, my brother was only one, and this is all from a black and white still image, little fuzzy, certainly no fixed detail, certainly not enhanced, but AI did its little bit of magic and cleaned everything up and presented it like a 1080p video that was done at the time. Now, mind you, at the time there was no such thing as video. It was all standard 8 movie if you wanted to capture something that was moving. A little grainy, certainly not the clarity that this video that was generated by AI presented to me. So it was nice, but it was creepy because I then sort of thought, well, where is this gonna go? So once I had generated that AI video image, of my real mum, my real brother, never having been in a motion video, because as I said, there was only Super 8 or Standard 8 back then, and seeing this presentation like a 1080p video, I thought, well, I was kind of a gasp. Now, mind you, my mind was racing here at this point. I thought, well, if AI can do this on a simple, generic image from anybody in the general public that just took a happy snap back in the 50s or the 60s or whenever, and could turn this into motion, well, what else could it do? And as a bit of a movie buff, come movie connoisseur, maybe I'm pushing it, it reminded me of a line in Rod Taylor's The Time Machine. I'll show you what I mean here. I just wanted to see how far this could go.
Along, I gained experience in handling the machine. I found that I could stop for a day, an hour, or even for a second to observe, then go ahead a year or two. Thus, I was able to see the changing world in a series of glimpses.
Good heavens. That's a dress?
This was intriguing. I wondered just how far women would permit this to go. I began to grow very fond of that mannequin. Maybe because, like me, she didn't age.
Now, okay, without showing you all of the 5-second videos that the Power Director, Photo Director thing generates and returns a result, I decided to push the envelope, and I thought, well, since it asks to input text, in other words, set the scene. What do you've given us an image. What do you want it to do? What do you expect? Okay, I'll give you 2 or 3 examples here of turning a still black and white image into something that I just did not think was possible. But here it is. Okay. See what I mean? Now, I know the reality. In my specific situation. So I know what's being played with, and I know what's been enhanced, and yeah, there's some fun to it. You know, that last image of, you know, me at 15, clipping from a clipping from the newspaper, and turning it into a moving image, very much like what was done in Harry Potter at some point. You know, they make images come to life, you know, that are supposed to be still, but they've got movement. Okay, fun. That's fun. Cool. But where I'm now coming from, and that is, I think this is a warning that if something is being presented and to be real or true, we're being hoodwinked. And well, how can I put it? You got to know where the whole thing is coming from to start with. So you got to know whether, like, you know, if you watch a comedy sketch, you know it's going to be comedy, even if it's said about a real situation with real people, real time, blah 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 blah. But it's being played upon. You know where it's going. You know what the basis is. You know where the real reality, if there's such a thing as a real reality, but you know where the reality is, and you know what's being played upon. When something is being presented to you, and I'm now thinking of something that I remember watching a long time ago. It was a Stanley Kubrick documentary after his passing, and they were presenting people and images and clips of things that were not real, but you had to wait till the whole 40-minute presentation documentary thing was finished before you kind of realized, well, the names that were used about people that were supposedly, you know, in the CIA or in NASA or somewhere else, which, you know, official organizations, but the names were fake. They, you know, Jack Torrance came up as a representative. Now, Jack Torrance in a Stanley Kubrick film was in The Shining. You know, that was the name of the Jack Nicholson character, Jack Torrance, who was the keeper of, who came in to look after the Overlook Hotel for you know, for the winter period. Once I started seeing a few things like that, I thought, hang on, this is a spoof. This is a mockumentary. It's not a documentary. And in the end, it was a mockumentary. But, you know, you sort of have to go through it. I don't know. It took me at least about half the length of the presentation to sort of realise, no, this is a spoof. This is trying to be funny, and it was entertaining. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that if something is presented to you, and YouTube seems to be the new medium, it's not going to be television anymore. It's more than likely going to be YouTube, and people think, well, YouTube is a collection of people's thoughts, videos, etc., that are real. You know, why would you fake them? But this is the new era. This is the new horizon. Things are being faked, presented as real. Unfortunately, it throws it more back on the viewer to be discerning and say, well, do I believe the crap that I'm watching, or is it real? I was trying to get you some images of things that I've seen just recently on YouTube. I'm thinking, oh, that's all AI crap. It has to be, truckloads of crabs being unleashed to do something. I'll find them and I'll present them a little bit later on. But yeah, it's now coming back on the viewer which is kind of unfair, because you would think that what's being presented should be the truth, but unfortunately, not everything that you read or see or is printed or is broadcast is the truth. And my personal biggest issue is I want to know the truth about things. Once a scene has been set and I know it's a spoof and it's a comedy, it's a Mel Brooks thing, and there's no way that Spaceballs could be a real situation, but it's a takeoff of Star Wars again, which is not a real thing because we don't know about what's going to happen in the future and etc., etc. But Star Wars is presented as a real thing, and therefore a lot of people have, I guess, believed that it's a true setting. Regardless of which particular episode we're talking about, episode 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, whatever. I forget how many George Lucas wrote, but there's a shitload of them. Anyway, my point is, they are presented as they are unreal, they are fiction, but they are presented in reality to make you believe it's a real story. And unfortunately, as the viewer, again, you need to work out where you are. Don't believe this is as reality that's now being presented to you. It's a version of a possible reality, so therefore it's hypothetical. And I guess that's fair enough. Anything could be looked at as a hypothetical. And then, you've got to work out, well, yeah, is that possible? Is it not possible? Yada, yada, yada. Anyway. I guess my point about this whole thing now is, after seeing what my personal experience is with this small and limited AI interaction, is that the sky's the limit here. It started off as deep fake stuff, where we knew that when you saw something, Tom Cruise saying something, you thought, well, geez, it certainly looks like him. The mouth movement is right, with the words, etc., etc. But it was deep fake. It was getting pretty good, actually. This isn't the next step, from what I can gather, and it's scary because unfortunately we rely on these things, these eyes, and the eyes sort of say, well, look, if I see it, I believe it. No, not anymore. That's not the way it is. I guess it needs to be in reality. It can't be on a screen. If it's on a screen, it can be manipulated. If you saw it outside, you saw a flying saucer in the sky and it landed in front of you and the aliens came out and they shook your hand, well, if it's real, it's real. But if you saw it on a screen that, the aliens came down and they shook the hands of somebody, but it was on a video, no. Now, it's questionable. 10 years ago, I probably would have said, yeah, Jesus, it must be real. But no, not now. This is the hard part. I hate fake stuff, but I like I like stuff that is entertaining, that could be pushing the envelope, but as long as you know it's fake to start with and it's not real. I'm just worried that things are going to be presented as being real, and a lot of people are going to suck it up and say, yeah, it's true. Ooh, what? My monitors have gone black. Oh, hello, wake up. That worries me. That worries me that people will, well, I'm trying not to say the unfortunate derogatory thing, in that is that the simple people will believe what they see, which I would have done as well. However, we're moving into a whole new generation of where we're moving up a level or two or three, where we've now got to really be conscious of what's being presented to us, and unfortunately it does fall back on us. Do we believe it or do we not believe it? This is the heart. Does God exist or does he not exist? It just comes back to what you feel in your heart. And unfortunately, a lot of people will be looking at things and say, I can see it, therefore I believe it, therefore it must be true. That's unfortunately not the way to go, to my way of thinking. I've never I've entertained the idea of a God. I've just not believed that there is one. And my basis of that sort of thing is coming back to, well, what has the rest of the population said or done? We've had, science has sort of told us we've had about 110 billion souls, in other words, 110 billion people that have existed on this planet since human or mankind has come along, about 200,000 or 300,000 years or thereabouts. You know, not Neanderthal, but, you know, Homo sapiens. Has anyone come back? Has, other than the stories that are in the Bible and other things that are written by other people who have occurred later on, they're not actual first-hand accounts. You know, they're writings of things that have occurred later on. You know, like the Bible wasn't really put together for about 300 years, from what I can understand, after the event of Jesus' so-called coming, whoever the hell he was. You know, I still think he was just probably a really good motivator at the time. He was the Andrew Carnegie or the Dale Carnegie. You know, he was one of those hyped up guys that, you know, sold a story and people followed, which is what AI is now doing. It's doing the same thing. It's trying to say, well, it's telling you something. I'm presenting you the facts. Here's the audio. Here's the video. It must be, you know, it's real. You know, believe it. You know, this is the narrative. But is it or isn't it? We kind of don't know. I don't know. This may be jumping around here and there in terms of what I'm trying to say, but I just think we need to be very, very cautious about what's coming down the path. I love technology. I think it can be wonderful to enhance things. It can make life certainly easier, but just like anything, like the simple knife or the simple gun, the knife, you know, is used to cut things, but it can also be used as a weapon. The gun can be used to hunt your prey, or, you know, if it's, you know, if it's a a deer or something you want to eat, but it can also shoot and kill people. So everything has a to and fro. It's a yin and yang thing, and maybe the Koreans have always had it right. You know, it's a balance. We just got to be more mindful now of the new the new things that are being presented to us, and how are we going to balance what we see to what we believe or what we don't believe. Some things are probably going to be obvious. It's the things that are probably more borderline that probably have a worry, where somebody has crafted something so well that it's going to be on the borderline of you need to believe it, but it's not real. And this is the hard part. So look, I just don't know where we're going to go, but the rise of AI is certainly occurring. This is the dawning of a new era and a new epoch that we need to be aware of, and we somehow need to be mindful of what is being presented to us, and is it influencing the way we want to go? Maybe that's actually it. If it's trying to influence your thinking, there's an ulterior motive, because it's trying to say to you, think this. Unfortunately, you are the one that needs to make up your mind about whether it's true, not true, real, not real, etc., etc., etc. There's no clear-cut answer from the outside and the external, which is what the kids today want to do. They want to go onto Google and what's the answer to such and such. Yeah, they think that's the Bible of whatever it is they're looking for. If you've ever had any interactions with ChatGPT and any of those other AI-generated things, as I have, I've had a couple of things. I can see the flaws. Some are blatantly obvious. The way I work it out is you ask it questions that you already know the real answers to. They're established. They're well founded, and you know about them, and you see what it comes up with. And when it deviates from the reality that you know of, that's where you've got to be aware. And I haven't done the stats, but I've just got this feeling it's maybe 80% right. It's not 100%, it's 80%. And that seems to be the feedback of people who have sort of said, when they've asked ChatGPT to, do an essay for them or research on something. Look, I've asked it some deep questions. The one that got me was when I asked it, well, okay, is there a God? And I thought that's the ultimate, is in a way. And we drilled down. It took about 30 minutes of toing and froing, with me asking questions and answers coming back, and they were all. It was basically saying, well, look, it goes by what's been written and published, and that seems to be the basis of its learning. It can't stand back and look at the picture as a whole. However, my one interaction with ChatGPT kind of said that, because it said, from everything from everything I've seen, all the documents it's come across, there's been no supporting evidence that there is a God. Well, hello, that's what I've been saying for a long time to myself, yet the whole world keeps on saying, well, we believe in God, we go to Mass on Sunday, and yada, yada, yada. Waste of time. I kind of worked that out by about 11 or 12. I thought, where's the evidence? Where's the support? Everything else needs support, and that's why I've gravitated towards science to sort of say, well, show me the supporting evidence. I will go that way until there's other supporting evidence that either contradicts it or nullifies what you've just believed, and we come up with a new, well, it can't be a new truth, it's got to be a new hypothesis, I suppose. The truth can only be the truth can never really change. Yeah, that's getting a little bit deeper. Okay, I'm not. I won't go there. I'm going to start confusing myself without thinking about it. Anyway, the point of this whole thing is the rise of AI. Be very careful. Be very mindful of what's being presented to you, even if it's a visual. The visual is not necessarily the truth. It's manipulated. Actually, going through all of the stuff that AI has done for me, the telltale sign that it's not real or it's AI generated is the clarity. All of the old 1950s and photos that I did, they were all fuzzy. They were all on old 2¼ square cameras that had, they were fixed focus. There was no clarity with the focus, etc. So they were all fuzzy, and you can see that from the original. The AI stuff enhanced that and cleared that. You can see that, I think, with the first image I had of my brother in the pram. The first image is a little bit fuzzy, a little bit out of focus, but when the life comes into him, it's all clean and clear. That's the indication that you're being lied to, or it's been, well, I won't say lied to. You've been manipulated. You're being presented something that the machine has enhanced. Anyway, I'm going to still keep going on Chat GPT, and I will still ask it more and more questions. I have noticed there are two versions of it. The Chat GPT is far friendlier, and it's a bit like I was throwing up my examples. Oh, Jesus, again. I was throwing up the examples of my poetry that I've been doing over the last 12 months. It was very nice. It sort of said, yeah. It was kind of like a professor talking to you. Not giving a negative response. It was encouraging. It was sort of saying, "Oh, I can see what you're doing here," or "Gee, that's a nice thing that you've said," or "I just like your perspective on this. It's very unique." Nothing was derogatory. However, the other version, when I went to look for something online and I just happened to, you get the AI think through Google. Apparently the Google version, well, it was kind of, every time I asked it something, it was sort of saying, "I am just a robot. I can only tell you what I've come across." And that became obvious after about 3 or 4 responses. It was not like the Chat GPT one, which appears more human and appears more friendly, which again is deceptive because it gives you that comfort that you think you're talking to a real person, but you're not. So you still don't know whether what you're being fed is being real or not real. I guess if it was a real person, at least that's one opinion. You can then go to another person and get another opinion, and then after about 3 or 4 opinions, maybe like when you get a quote for when you've had a crash in your car and you want to find out about getting it repaired, you need 4 or 5 quotes so that you can work out what's the best response or the best answer. I think this might be the same sort of thing. You need more than, don't just settle on the first thing that comes across. You need to have a couple of different, and there need to be different versions from different trains of thought. They can't be from the same machine, that because your responses are going to be similar, or if not the same. So maybe that's where it is good to have Chat GPT being different from Google, which is different from OpenAI or whoever they are. I mean, there's about 4 or 5 from what I understand that are out there. Anyway, all right, this is taking far too long. Just be aware. AI, great when it does something that you need and it's helpful for you, but just be very, very careful about asking it new information that you don't know, because you can't then tell if the answer you're getting is correct. I would suspect the best way to do it is to ask it like what I've started doing. Ask it questions that you already know the answer to, and then you can sort of see where it's going. If you know that it's really way off course with an answer that you know is correct, and it's telling you something 180 degrees different, just be mindful, because then the next answers you may be getting could be just way off track. It's got a long way to learn. If it's learning, it needs a lot more training. It needs to go to school a lot more. I thought it was a real live interactive thing that was gathering information on a live basis in real time. Because one of the questions I asked it was, well, how many people are you doing something for right now? Well, it couldn't tell me the answer to that because I forget now what the actual answer was, but it was something like, well, I can't tell you that. And that's where we sort of worked out it had to be published information for it to respond. In other words, scientific papers or newspaper articles or written text or books or whatever, blah, 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 blah. That's the only way that it gathers its information. It can't seem to pull back from everything it sees and come up with a so-called intelligent response, because there's no intelligence. It's just regurgitating what it's seen and what it's learnt. I guess to a degree we do that too. When you learned your mathematical timetable, you're just regurgitating. Two threes are 6. Well, you haven't worked it out. You just know it because it was drummed into you. 9 9s are 81s. 12 12s are 144. You didn't calculate it. You just regurgitated what you've heard. And I got a funny feeling ChatGPT and all these other AI models are doing the same thing. They're just regurgitating what they've come across. They're not actually doing a so-called intelligent pullback and coming up with something intelligent from what they see. This is why I think it's in its infancy. It's got a long way to go. But having said that, there's a lot of information that's been put in there from all the books that it's read and all the bits of information. I mean, I've asked it questions about, in science and chemical formulas and this, that, and it knows all those things because they are established facts that have been published, and therefore that's where it's getting its basis from. That's fair enough. It's the things that are new and maybe questionable that is the problem. I guess that's where I have to leave it and let you ponder. Just be mindful. Be aware. At the moment, it's a 50-50 bet. I think that it actually tells you the truth. All right. Good night.